Suffice to say, this was a complex military operation that involved airstrikes as well as the capture of Nicolás Maduro and his wife. Joining us to discuss, United States Marine Corps retired Colonel Mark Cancian. Colonel, always good to see you. Welcome back. President Trump made good on his promise about imminent land strikes. You and I have talked about this. Your reaction on what took place overnight?
This was quite surprising. That is, that the United States put troops on the ground and was able to snatch Maduro and his wife. In 2003, we were very unsuccessful with these what are called high-value target attacks. Here, we were able to execute them. Also impressive, the United States was able to get through the Venezuelan air defenses, which, at least on paper, were quite formidable. It's important to keep in mind, though, that the military operation, while brilliant, is only a tool. What really matters are the political situation and the legal situation, and those are very much up in the air.
Talk to me about the complexity of an operation when capturing a foreign leader.
Well, the first thing is they had to have very good intelligence about where Maduro would be and when he would be there. Maduro said he was moving around, but it's possible that he had hunkered down at one of the air bases, figuring that that was secure. Once the United States had the confidence that they knew where he was, then they had to organize the strike. Almost certainly soft forces going in by helicopters. We heard reports about helicopters. They would have gone down and done the actual snatch. But there was also likely a lot of air activity to take down, suppress the Venezuelan air defenses, and that would have been done by the Air Force and the Navy. So you have many services working together to execute this operation. The United States is one of the few countries in the world that can do that.
So while this foreign leader and his wife are being captured, there are airstrikes in the capital of this country. Talk to me about the difficulty of both these operations happening at the same time.
Well, jointness, getting multiple services to work together, has always been a struggle, not just for the United States, but for every military in the world. The United States put a lot of effort into building the tools to have all of these elements work together. You see here, likely the Navy, Special Operations Forces, the Air Force, maybe even the CIA working together seamlessly. That's why we have regional commands like Southern Command to bring all these strands together.
Colonel, very few of us have the insight of being in these situations directly. For the troops involved, talk to me about what they faced, whether it was on the ground or in the air.
Well, the troops on the ground were almost certainly soft troops. Those had been reinforced recently, and they've been operating in the Caribbean. Likely came off of one of the U.S. ships offshore, perhaps one of the carriers, perhaps the soft mothership. They would have gone in by helicopter. These are MH-60s that are specially designed for special operations. They would have come in low under the air defenses, landed. The troops would have been well briefed about where Maduro was. Clearly, they were able to snatch him pretty expeditiously without having to do a lot of fighting on the ground. Grabbed him, put him on the helicopter, flown away. Very much like what we saw with the bin Laden raid. At the same time, the United States is executing these attacks on air defenses to make sure that those air defenses could not interfere with the helicopters.
You and I have talked about the U.S. moving warships, fighter jets, surveillance aircraft to the region while they were pursuing oil tankers. How the Pentagon did that and prepared for the attacks that we have seen conducted this morning, how did this play out?
Well, the United States built up military forces for a variety of possible operations. Some of those operations were intercepting drug vessels that have been going on continuously, and I think we've intercepted something like 3 dozen. Some of it is to intimidate the Maduro regime, and some of it was to prepare for a kinetic action that might have been air and missile attacks. We've seen some of that here, and also soft. So the United States built up these forces to have the possibility of doing a wide variety of operations.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.